Again. Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's presentation, Inside Our Northern Lights Photo Expedition, is brought to you by NatHab Expedition Leader and Pro Photographer Eddie Savage. A little bit more about our presenter. Eddie studied coastal adventure tourism at North Island College and has led multi-day nature expeditions since 2008 across diverse platforms from sea kayaks and canoes to expedition ships and sailboats. He's a long-tenured grizzly bear viewing guide in Canada's Great Bear Rainforest and has served as a NatHab expedition leader since 2016, leading photo expeditions to Churchill, Hawaii, Greenland, Iceland, and China. As an accomplished nature photographer and writer, Eddie has published his photography in nature-focused articles in print and online, while specializing in challenging conditions from Arctic tundra to temperate rainforests. Thank you for being here today, Eddie. Over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Brooke, and it's great to be here again for a Northern Lights photo know before you go. Yeah, I've been doing these Northern Lights expeditions since 2017, and the photo trips as well for that same amount of time. And I've got to say, when we're thinking about an extremely beautiful and photogenic place to go to look for the Northern Lights and spend time taking pictures, Churchill is just absolutely phenomenal. So I've tried to scatter a few of my images from the years throughout the presentation. So I hope you enjoy that too. But today, yeah, we're gonna dive in, and I'm gonna kind of give you like a preparation for what to expect. I know a lot of viewers are probably already signed up, and then maybe some folks you're thinking about joining in a future year. But we have such an extraordinary team that makes this expedition possible and makes it it's just a really special trip. So a very comfortable way to explore Canada's subarctic in the wintertime. Folks, yeah, as an introduction to your trip, we are going to be doing these photo expeditions, I believe, from about late January, early February, all the way through March. If you're looking for a regular trip, they run about mid-January into March as well. It's a good long season, and our primary objective really is to just be in Churchill during the coldest time of year, during those winter months when the Hudson Bay is frozen, and when basically Churchill turns into this subarctic desert with a high likelihood of clear skies. That's your main prerequisite, and a very good chance to see the Northern Lights each night we're up there. So yeah, I'm going to go through. Let's start with looking at Churchill. This is typically what Churchill looks like. We're going to be we are going to be making our way up here. The way we do that's with chartered aircraft. You know, small kind of hamlet on the coast of the Hudson Bay, and situated kind of in between the Hudson Bay and the Churchill River, and population of a little over 800 people. And it is just a hardy winter community that we're going to be going up to with some really wonderful people, and we will completely immerse ourselves in that place. It's right at the edge of a transition zone between the tundra, the tundra environment, kind of that open expanse with plants that are only a few inches tall, and the boreal forest, kind of in that transition zone from boreal forest to tundra. So we're going to see lots of really beautiful things, but the area is just breathtaking. So when you arrive on this trip, everyone will be flying into Winnipeg, and you'll arrive to the Winnipeg airport. You'll be basically going through your customs, or if you're arriving from a Canadian destination, you'll just walk right down to the baggage claim, and we'll always have people there waiting for you. We're expecting you. We're tracking your flight, and you're going to want to look for us. Usually, we've got folks. They're standing kind of by the baggage carousel 1 there or nearby, and they've got a NatHab sign that they'll be holding up, expecting you and looking for you, knowing that your plane has arrived, knowing that where your luggage will be, and they'll be looking for you. So we'll be transferring from Winnipeg, from the Winnipeg airport to the Fort Garry Hotel. And this is our accommodations. you know, this is about 20 minutes in Winnipeg. This is our accommodations. It's about 20 minutes from the airport. And we'll take our NatHab shuttle there to the hotel, and we'll get you all checked in and situated. This hotel is absolutely stunning itself. I encourage you to kind of look around the foyer at some of the old and outside some of the old architecture. It was built in the early 1900s, very close to the train station, is what we call kind of an old railway hotel. It is, yeah, it's been, of course, modernized since 1912, but a lot of that original architecture and kind of exterior and interior decoration still exists, and so it's just a beautiful place to stay, in my opinion. So once we're at the Fort Garry Hotel, we'll get you checked in, and we'll be giving you a welcome letter. A welcome letter from us, basically, that gives you some information for the time leading up to your welcome dinner. And this is where you'll start to see things are a little bit different on the photo expedition. So our nature journeys, or our other departures, are usually a group of 15 people with one expedition leader. But the photo expedition, what we recognize is, especially when we're out there trying to capture some fantastic pictures of northern lights, is we want to have a slightly smaller group. I like to think it's a little bit, you know, it's a little bit more space for our gear, our tripods, our camera bags, that kind of stuff. But also, we're going to have 2 expedition leaders. So it'll be myself and a co-guide, and basically you'll have double the expertise, double the experience, and double the time with us to assist with cold weather photography. So one of our primary objectives for this trip is to make sure that everyone comes away with some spectacular Northern Lights photos and some spectacular experiences in the wintertime. And so I'm thrilled to be out there co-guiding and being able to offer you a really personalized, hands-on assistance with capturing the very best that we can while we're in Churchill. So that's definitely one of the big photo expedition differences, is we've got 2 expedition leaders and a slightly smaller group, more time with each individual. That brings us to the next step. So you'll see on that welcome letter, there'll be a specific time for your gear pickup, and you'll be meeting your expedition leader at that time, as well as some of our field operations specialists. They'll be basically helping you get some of our loaned equipment. So that kind of stuff we'll be handing out is going to be basically our winter parkas. We have a winter fleece, a heavy fleece that we lend out, which is a great extra layer. We're going to have some snow pants, snow pants that are, they're 1 inch to 1.5 inches with the insulation. They go on over top of your other layers. And if you've got a pair of snow pants that work pretty well, you know that they fit, and you've used them in very cold temperatures before, you can bring those and try them out with the gear. If you're going to want to show them to us when you're there, but I definitely find some folks, they've got a pair of snow pants that work really well for them. Maybe they live in like Michigan or Minnesota, which I call kind of like honorary Churchill, because it gets so cold, especially in the center of central North America there in the winter times. So if you've got a good pair of snow pants that you really like, I do encourage to bring those, because if they fit you well, that's great. But if not, no worries. We have tons of snow pants, and they work really, really well up in Churchill. Then we're going to give you some heavy winter boots. These are big, heavy, kind of, large size winter boots with a removable insert, which is a really important feature up there, because if your feet get a little bit damp and the inside of your boot gets a little bit damp, it allows you to separate the 2 pieces and dry them out at night. So the next day you're ready to go with nice, toasty, warm, dry boots. If you've got some mitts, we have mittens. These nice big full kind of, that's the thumb, and then it covers your 4 fingers type mitts. These are generally not for what you'll be trying to take a picture with, but they're really nice just to keep your hands warm in between shots, or if we're just outside walking around for a bit and you don't need to actually hit any dials or settings on your camera. We can also lend out, we've got a neck gaiter, which kind of just goes here, pulls up to about your nose. We also have a warm hat, which comes from the top down to about the tops of your ears. And then we have, if that's not enough, you can also throw on a balaclava, which is going to do from your neck up to your nose, around, and cover your whole head. And then you put your toque or your hat on top of that, your warm hat on top of that, and then your neck gaiter up over top of that. And then we've also got some hand and foot warmers that will be passing around. And we may have those in Winnipeg. If we don't have them in Winnipeg, we'll definitely have them up in Churchill. But that's typically everything that we lend out. And this information, of course, I'm going to refer back to this quite a lot on this presentation, is your pre-departure briefing. But lots of that information is going to be in here. In particular, what I want you to pay close attention to is the packing list in there. And it's fine, you know, when you're traveling to Churchill, you know, or when you're traveling to Winnipeg in particular, you know, you can bring a good amount of stuff. And then if there's anything you're just like, oh no, now that I've seen the gear that NatHab is lending out, and I see maybe I have too many layers, or you know, too many down puffy jackets, or too many fleece jackets, or I'd prefer to take NatHab's fleece jacket versus mine, because we're going to do the packing list here next. You're very welcome to borrow a bag from us. You can leave stuff behind in Winnipeg to meet you once we return, and you don't need our gear anymore. So just that's something to keep in mind. So when it comes to the packing list and things that you should bring in our accommodation, you're definitely going to want some indoor shoes or slippers. You don't want your only pair of footwear to be the big boots. Yes, when we're outside, we're going to be wearing those big boots. You know, almost all the time. It will be -20, -30, sometimes -40 or below, depending on what the weather is. So it's quite chilly. So I do recommend bringing some indoor shoes or slippers, something you can wear around the hotel. And that'll just, you know, that evening time or morning time, for the photo expeditions where our breakfast is going to be, it's going to be at the hotel. And so, yeah, having some indoor shoes to walk to breakfast instead of your big winter boots is probably a pretty comfortable idea. Down puffy jacket. So I have a down puffy jacket that I wear underneath my parka. Definitely make sure you bring one of those. It can be synthetic, but of course, if it's down, it's going to be a little bit more insulative. But a puffy jacket midweight is going to be a really great layer. Glove liners and touchscreen sensitive, and we'll touch base on this one again, but this is really important. Glove liners that are touchscreen sensitive. I generally lean away from the merino wool ones for the photo trips, because what I found is they're not hardy enough for extreme cold, and then also touching the camera dials and moving the buttons and stuff like that, and changing your lens and everything. I find with and the pieces of the tripod and everything, I find that the merino wool ones have the possibility of getting a little bit torn up. And the best is some type of synthetic, preferably like windproof on the outer hand type of glove liner. And I'll touch base on that one again. Warm hat and face covering. So we do have warm hats that you can borrow, and face covering that you can borrow. But again, if you got stuff that works, or you're looking for some, you've had your eye on some things. Yeah, a warm hat and face covering of your choice. You can always bring it. And frankly, having two warm hats, that's fine. You know, you can wear one warm hat, and then if it's really cold, you put another one on top of it, or same with the face covering, or you can just swap them out. Coordinate with your down puffy, or yeah, stuff like that. I find if you're going to go out and buy a warm hat, I found, there's like the bomber style hats, or they're kind of like really warm on the top, but then they have those ear coverings, and the ear coverings can either pin up or flap down, and then you can kind of buckle into your chin. I find those Like if you're going to go out and get yourself a warm hat, I find those are really nice. In particular, you know, Churchill, there's not a lot of trees around to cut the wind, so there's always a little bit of a breeze. And I find that having those down over my ears is really nice and toasty warm, as well as kind of if it's like a windproof kind of fabric on the outside. Those are really nice hats for up there in Churchill, kind of the bomber style hats. Warm socks and liner socks. So we're going to be looking at, you know, every day you'll be wearing 2 pairs of socks, usually a thin pair of socks and a thicker pair of socks. There are specific kind of like liners for that. And then when it comes to socks, I do recommend, you know, like a wool blend is really nice, or complete wool sock is really nice. I usually wear either like a wool liner or a synthetic liner, and then kind of a thicker, heavier winter sock or boot sock that goes on over that. Always 2 pairs of socks though. It helps with kind of wicking moisture away from your foot, so count on that. Long underwear is good. Long johns, kind of wool or a wool blend is going to be your favorite there. Comfortable pants and shirts for layering. Something that I would recommend here when you're looking at comfortable pants and shirts is you don't want anything to be like really tight. Anything really tight isn't really going to do a ton for keeping you warm. So you know, it's comfortable is really important. You know, make sure there's a little bit of extra room in there for layers underneath. And same with the shirts. Just make sure that your layers are, you know, they're going to go on easy and actually have a little bit of air in between them, so that they can trap the heat and help keep you warm out there. Sunglasses and ski goggles. So sunglasses are great. I know many folks are going to come with glasses as well, and I would do a little bit of internet research or questioning about kind of ways to keep sunglasses or keep your regular glasses from fogging. We have, of course, if your glasses are going to get cold outside and then you breathe on them, the moisture in your breath will latch onto your glasses, and then you'll have foggy glasses, and that's tricky. So that's actually where ski goggles come in handy. I would highly recommend your ski goggles have a completely clear lens, especially if you intend on wearing them at night. A lot of people, especially those that do wear glasses, and they need glasses just for walking or seeing regular every day, or even reading glasses. If they wear them underneath a set of ski goggles, then the condensation from the breath doesn't make it into the ski goggle chamber, and it keeps those glasses a little bit less fogged up. So that's something to consider there as well. Contact lenses. This is a great question that I've had a lot, and I used to wear contact lenses as well. They will not freeze to your eye if you're concerned about that. It's a question that's come up quite a lot. So they're not going to freeze to your eye, nor will they freeze and fall out of your eye. Your body does a great job of that, of keeping them nice and warm. And then yes, personal items including moisturizer and sunscreen. These ones I do recommend the moisturizer, and I do recommend sunscreen. You know, if we have crystal clear days out there and we've got the low sun reflecting off of all of the white snow around us, and we don't have sunscreen on, we're definitely going to get some UV exposure there. So a good idea to have some sunscreen to protect yourself from that. And then also moisturizer. It's extremely dry in Churchill, extremely cold and dry, and then also the heating systems around town are generally kind of blowing that dried out forced air, often through either a propane or electric furnace. And so I find that skin can really dry out, in particular your hands. Your hands can really dry out. So having a moisturizer that you're using regularly, or if that's a problem that you've had in the past, is really important. And then headlamp. So headlamp with a red light setting is key. Red light preserves your night vision. If you're, shining a big white light around, not only does the snow just pick that up and carry it for hundreds of yards, but it also will ruin your night vision. So your night vision and everybody else's night vision. So they won't have they won't be able to see the northern lights as vividly. And then a battery bank. So this one is because some of the viewing locations that we go to most of them don't have a power outlet, or certainly not enough power outlets for everybody. And when we're shooting in particular with smartphones, they are highly susceptible to the cold, and they can have a battery just zap in a matter of minutes, in particular if it's -40, and you've got it on the outside pocket of your jacket, or it's sitting on a tripod mount. It's not that the battery is actually dead, it's just your phone thinks the battery's dead because the battery got too cold. The operation of it got too cold. So having a battery bank that you can charge up your phone while we're in the field is a great idea, especially some of our nights. We'll be out pretty late into the night doing our photography. So if you want to make sure that you've got enough juice in your iPhone or your Android phone, bring a battery bank along with you, and you can get it charged. You can make sure it's charged up while you're in the field. And then it's not a bad idea to have a packable small duffel bag for extra gear. So this could be even nice if you're like, we want to bring a few extra layers out with us to the viewing location just in case it gets really cold, or that kind of thing. It's nice to have a little packable small duffel bag for toting extra stuff around if needed. And then water bottle. So this ought to have been mailed to you, and you should have a water bottle. You don't necessarily have to bring NatHab's one. We love it when you do. They seem to be just the perfect size, and they're double wall insulated, so they're less likely to have the cold air actually freeze the water inside of it because of that insulation. It works both ways. So yeah, bring your NatHab water bottle. We don't have single-use cups out there, and it's we're not going to be able to have cups with us just when we're out exploring in the bus during the daytime. So very good idea to have water. It's also really dry, as I mentioned, with the sunscreen and the moisturizer. It's really dry, and it's very easy to forget to drink water, especially when it's as cold as it will be. You just kind of forget, but it's very dry, so we'll want to stay hydrated each day that we're out there. Now, here's some of the juicy bits for our photography trips, and I've got a few slides here specifically relating to cameras and smartphones. But folks, for cameras, something we really want to keep in mind is your camera needs to be capable of long exposure, and the way that of taking a long exposure in general. So the way that we can kind of tackle that is you can do some testing at home, which I always recommend. Always play around with your settings, and I'm going to give you some settings at the end of the presentation here for you to mess around with. But basically, yeah, some bridge cameras and point and shoot cameras can't do long exposure. They'll get you to the point where you can do like a 1-second shutter speed at like ISO 1600, but as soon as you try to go to like a 5-second shutter speed, the ISO will then lock in at 100. So it's not really capable. So just make sure that you can achieve these three things together that I've got on the screen there: ISO 2000, shutter speed of 10 seconds, and make sure you can get that camera into manual focus. You can test this at home in a dark room, close all the doors and the windows, turn the lights off, or go outside at night. That works too. Basically, set your camera up so you're achieving these things, and then you'll know, okay, yes, my camera can do long exposure. Yeah, you can also consult the internet or a photo store nearby to make sure your camera is long exposure capable. Yeah, but most DSLR cameras, mirrorless cameras, the vast majority of bridge cameras and point and shoot cameras, in particular ones from like Nikon and Sony, that have been that have kind of your auto shutter manual modes, all that, or sorry, your aperture, shutter, and manual modes, all that kind of stuff. They usually can, but please do just double check it before you come all the way up to Churchill, because it's always, it's always a tough one when we find out on arrival, and we're trying to set it up that the camera doesn't work. But there's lots of that's my main suggestion, is double check that your camera is capable of long exposure before trying to take it up to Churchill. Otherwise, if you want to use it through the day, that's great. But if it can't do long exposure, there's nothing I can do to fix that. There's nothing we can do in the field to fix that. You need to have a camera that's capable of doing it. So what smartphones will work? Basically, smartphones around 2019 and newer. This is kind of the models that I've seen to work: iPhone 11, Samsung S9, and the Google Pixel 3 and newer. They should all have a night mode programmed in. And a question that I often get is, well, are we going to talk about smartphone photography on the trip? And that is 100% one of our goals on this trip. Frankly, I often see a pretty decent split every night. I've got people on tripods taking pictures with their DSLR or mirrorless cameras, or some of those bridge and point and shoots that do work with long exposure. We see those folks doing their thing, but they're also at times taking out their smartphone, snapping a few pictures. And then there's a whole bunch of people that really love kind of the flexibility of the smartphones, and they're just, they are smartphones for a reason. They're really dialed in, especially some of the newer ones in the last kind of year to 4 years. They're really dialed in with the night photography. The sensors are getting so good. The stabilization, so you can just hand hold them, is getting really, really good. And the color and quality of a night photo as well is getting just kind of mind-blowing, actually, as far as what these smartphones are capable of doing. So yeah, if you've got something 2019 and newer, I think you're going to be in great shape as far as night photography goes. And we will talk about that, how to set up your smartphone for night photography, how to accomplish the best. The only difference between, that we're going to see, we're going to probably talk about, we'll do some presentations, we'll talk about composition and kind of how to make the most out of what we're seeing with the Northern Lights. And a lot of that will still apply to the smartphones. The only difference is going to be like the actual, how you get the picture, which we will touch on in Churchill during some photo lectures. As far as lens selection, for those of you with DSLR or mirrorless cameras with interchangeable lenses, we're going to want to be looking at wide. So the wider, the better. These are, landscape lenses. I find that the more of the night sky you can get into the picture, the better. The lens that I use right now, I have 3 different Northern Lights lenses that, depending on how I'm feeling that night, I will take out with me. One of them is I've got a 14 to 24 f2.8. I have a 16 1.8, and then I have a 10.5 2.8. And so those lenses, they basically give me a huge chunk of the night sky, and especially when the aurora is out, it's not going to be taking up 10% of the sky. It usually takes up 30% to 50% of the sky, or at least within your kind of field of view for your camera. So you want to make sure you have a nice wide lens, and that means, something in that range, 12 millimeters, 11 millimeters to about 24 millimeters is the highest, or kind of the most telephoto that you'd want. On my list here, I put 18 to 55 millimeters only because I know that's a really common kit lens that comes with a lot of DSLR cameras, and it'll be okay. It's not the widest lens, but it'll probably work okay. The next feature you want to look for on the lens is your aperture, or your f-stop value. And so when you look here, f2.8, f1.8, that's usually where I want to be. I'd recommend, f2.8 is going to be a solid night photography lens, Northern Lights photography lens. f3.5 is good too. f4, I did shoot with an f4 lens one season, and it was all right as well. But once if you're getting kind of a higher number than f4, that's going to be a very slow lens, and you'll just have to keep increasing your shutter speed to compensate for increasing your shutter speed or your ISO to compensate for how dark that lens is. So I would really steer you towards f2.8, f1.8, f3.5. And in this day and age, there's lots of great, like if you don't have one of those lenses, I would, talk to your local camera shop. There's lots of great options. Even if it's, there's lots of great options in that zone for pretty much all camera bodies in this day and age. Great. So aside from lenses, folks, battery recommendations for your cameras. We go through a lot of batteries. It's very cold. I've found that kind of my standard is 4 batteries. If I don't see the aurora one night, I'm probably still going to go through 1 battery. If the aurora comes out a little bit, I'll go through 2. If the aurora is going for quite a few hours, 3 or 4 hours that night, maybe more, then I'll probably burn through all of those batteries, all 4 batteries, or at least 3 full batteries. So it's really nice to be able to have a good backup amount of batteries for our night photography. Another trick is actually bringing multiple chargers too. So I made the mistake one year of bringing just 1 charger, and of course to charge 1 battery takes about 2 hours, depending on your battery. But my batteries, they take about 2 hours, 90 minutes to 2 hours to charge. So I'd have to basically like be monitoring and replacing those batteries to charge them up for like 8 hours. So now I try to bring 2 or 3 chargers at minimum to make sure that if I do come back after a night where I've burnt through all my batteries, I can really easily charge them all up. And we're staying out at the White Whale Lodge, and there's going to be outlets in the wall, but I do recommend a power strip to have multiple chargers charging at the same time. It's going to make a big difference for you out there to have 2 or 3 batteries charging at once, and your phone and all that kind of stuff, instead of having to like kind of constantly rotate and manage your power outlet situation in your room. So I do recommend something like that for our time in the hotel. And then I'm not going to skip out on the battery bank. Same reasons that I talked about before. I'd love to see, it's nice to have that out there. I wouldn't necessarily say it's going to, fully charge your battery, but if you have a battery that you suspect, mostly your phone. If you suspect that your phone has died in the cold and it's got the cold shock, you can plug it into a battery bank for a little bit, get a little bit of juice in there, and even though it was dead, it might still show up as having X percentage of battery life after it's been plugged into a battery bank for a little while. So I do recommend that. As far as gear notes, some more notes for photography purposes. As I mentioned before, glove liner, synthetic, and touchscreen compatible. What I do recommend is testing this as best you can, and if possible, test it in a cold environment. Glove liners, synthetic, that are touchscreen compatible are really nice for your smartphones. And then also, some cameras are touchscreen. They usually get pretty frosted up though, so you can't really use it as well. But still, synthetic seems to last a lot better especially when you're playing with like the tripod pieces and the camera dials and buttons and stuff. The merino wool just seems to be a little bit too light for some of our cold weather amblings. And then headlamp. This is something that I recognized after watching lots of people play around with headlamps with red lights. Is some headlamps you have to like cycle through the colors to get to them, and then there's some headlamps that have 2 buttons. One of them is going to be for your main white light, and then the other one is going to be for your red light. If you can find a headlamp that has just a nice button for your red light, it's going to save you a whole deal of trouble out there, instead of having to cycle through your lights, especially when you've got gloves on. And I do recommend getting familiar with your headlamp. Spend an evening with all the lights off in your house, navigating just by your headlamp, and get used to where the buttons are. Wear your gloves, wear your glove liners. If you've got some bigger gloves at home for other things, wear those gloves. Test it out. test it out in a nice warm environment at home before trying to figure out the buttons on a headlamp when it's -40. That is my recommendation from experience. Next one, dry bag and big plastic bag. So yes, condensation is a big deal. It's only a big deal going one direction though. So when we go from inside to out, that's fine. It's just at the end of the night when we go from out to in, you're going to see that if you don't have it in a dry bag or a big plastic bag or really tightly tucked into your camera bag and zipped up, you will get condensation on it, or all like the warm air inside is much moister than outside, and the camera is basically frozen. So as soon as it goes into a warm environment, all that moisture just like freezes to the camera. But it doesn't just freeze to the outside of the camera, it freezes on the inside as well. And so you can get ice on the inside of your lens, you can get ice on some of the internal mechanisms of your camera, and it can cause problems. So what I would suggest is, yeah, have a dry bag or a big plastic bag and test it at home. Think about the conditions where you're going to be putting your camera into the bag and out of the bag. You're going to want to make sure that that's easy to do, because I've seen some dry bags come where it's just like, oh yeah, I'll just turn it this way and then try to shuffle this in there. You really don't have a lot of patience when it's -40 and you're trying to get that camera in the bag. So I would go bigger, more spacious, and just enjoy the ease of tucking that camera into a dry bag. And then once we get it wrapped up, then we'll just stick it into whatever bag we're transporting it around with, our backpack or duffel bag or whatever your situation is. Okay, moving on. We lend tripods. So we lend you these Manfrotto aluminum tripods with a pistol grip tripod head. They're sweet. You can wear like your full mitt and you can kind of grab it with the gloved hand and just kind of shuffle around and change the position of the ball head for your camera. We also have cell phone mounts for those that we can screw onto the same tripod plate. It has a quick release plate that hand screws into the base of your camera, and most every camera has this exact same dimension screw for tripod plate. They're heavy, they're solidly built, and they're easy to use. So the reason I mention the heavy part is heavy and solid build is because the conditions that we're going to be photographing the aurora, not necessarily like weather extreme. Well, yeah, actually weather extreme, but it's just that environment, the extreme cold, the kind of uneven snow sometimes, and uneven textures and density of snow. These tripods are just amazing. They're you plant them in the ground and they're going to stay there. You accidentally hit it with your elbow, it's not going to just tip over if you've got the legs out properly. Whereas I've seen a lot of folks bring tripods with them. They've got these awesome, and I believe it for some warmer environments and different situations. You got like these awesome carbon fiber tripods with the twisting legs, and they're really awesome. But they're often lightweight, and especially if they're designed to be lightweight, they can get pretty slender down at the end of the leg. And I've seen a number of those fall over, in particular with just a little bump or even with some heavy wind. So I do recommend bringing ours. They're awesome. They're purpose built. They're exactly what you need for Churchill's cold and the weather there. So we've got those, and we've got enough for all of our photo guests for sure. So clothing system, when you're packing, when you're layering up, usually it looks like your base layer, your mid layer, and outer layer, which is going to be your parka and the snow pants, head warmer, gloves, and boots. And we'll talk more about this, but just, it's a very good idea when you're packing to make sure you're not skipping any layers. And it doesn't hurt to have an extra layer if you are a particularly cold person. So please take our packing list very seriously and bring the requested items. And then, as I mentioned, we do have like one winter fleece per person that we can lend out if you're concerned with the equipment that you did bring, on top of our other lent gear. These are the temperatures we're going to be expecting in Winnipeg. Fahrenheit, these are your kind of average highs and lows. So pretty chilly in winter. Nickname for winter is Winterpeg. We'll touch base on that when we're in Winnipeg. And then weather in Churchill, it just kind of stays cold the whole time. But you know, your average low is minus 27 Fahrenheit, 0 wind included. So if there's even a breath of wind, it's going to be minus 40. And then traveling to Churchill, this is how we get there. So we charter this aircraft. It takes 2 to 2.5 hours, sometimes a little bit longer, depending on the direction of the wind. 650 miles from Winnipeg to Churchill. And your luggage allowance will be 2 bags, combined weight of 50 pounds. So you'll have your big check bag that we'll take from you, and that'll get stored on the plane. And then you'll also have a carry-on is 20 pounds. Now, we do have a valet service that I'll talk about here, but if you want to try to bring a carry-on onto the aircraft, it needs to be 10 by 16 by 12 inches and no bigger. Now, we have a valet system, and I'm going to show you that because I have a camera backpack that is not 10 by 16 by 12. And this is how I bring my lenses, this is how I bring my camera, but not my batteries, because my batteries, they always have to stay on my person. So usually I just pluck them out of my camera backpack, either stick them in my parka pockets, or I have a laptop bag, I'll just stick them into the laptop bag. But all lithium batteries or items with lithium batteries must travel in the main cabin, which is a Transport Canada regulation, and the same, I think, globally for most airlines now with lithium batteries. They need to be with us in the cabin of the aircraft. And if you have too much stuff or extra stuff that you realize our gear replaced, then you can store those items in Winnipeg. Now, as far as our valet luggage, this is going to be, you know, your typical like hard case like this one here, which belongs to a guide that I've worked with for many years, Eleanor. And then I have a big, large camera pack. These ones we do valet, or it's basically what's called gate check. A similar thing where we're going to take them from you the morning that we're heading up to Churchill, and we'll mark them with a valet and a fragile tag, and we weigh them, we bring them we put them on the bottom of the bus, and then when we get to the aircraft, they're stored up in the kind of the main cabin, just out of reach of us. And then when we land in Churchill, then they're taken off the plane and put onto a little cart next to the aircraft. So then we could just collect them again. But it's just, what it does is it kind of, because they're not going to fit in under the seats, they're not going to fit in the overhead compartment, and it's too large of a bag to go on the interior of this plane. It just basically makes it so we can bring those big bags up with us and tuck them away, and then yeah, I've been using the system for a decade. It works really well, and we'll talk about more about that at the welcome dinner as well. This is inside the aircraft. You know, very comfortable. It'll be a little cold when we first start up, but then it warms up once we're really flying. And then once we're in Churchill, we're going to have our shuttle here provided by our local travel partner, Great White Bear Tours. Fantastic drivers, wonderful group of people, and many friends of mine who I've been working with for years and years and years. Always looking forward to spend time with them. And then at one point in time, you'll get to travel on this customized 4x4 bus that will take us out to the creek cabin. For accommodations in town, excuse me, we're a little bit different from the regular trips. The regular trips will stay in town, but we very specifically are staying at this White Whale Lodge. And White Whale Lodge is situated, it's about a 10-15 minute drive outside of Churchill. It has a full electric fence around, which makes it so that we can, you know, if you're somebody who is just super keen and wants to stand outside and spend a bunch of time just watching the lights or taking pictures through the middle of the night, you are welcome to do that, because we have this electric fence. So we can basically safely say, yes, you can stand outside and take pictures at 4 in the morning, where all on the other trips, basically you're in town and you've got the lights, big city lights all around you, so you don't get kind of this remoteness. So we'll be staying here. It's a fantastic host for our stay. We've got a continental breakfast on site, and we are, like, as far as being able to reach some beautiful locations, vistas, some of the most gorgeous trees. They're a very short drive away. as well as a beautiful stretch of beach and Precambrian rock. It's a really gorgeous location. There's also a mural here, and it looks like this. So, and maybe we'll get this photo. Yeah, I don't know. That'd be pretty cool. I'm in for it. Inside, comfortable beds, good light in the room. And then we also have a lounge space here. All right, so let's talk a quick minute about Northern Lights and why they're in Churchill. So Churchill, you can see there marked by the star. There's visible aurora over 300 nights of the year because we're situated under the aurora oval. So basically, this is an area around the North Geometric North Pole where you have essentially the most aurora activity. The most aurora activity in the whole of the North because of its location. And Churchill happens to be right underneath this aurora oval, which means if we have clear skies and we're awake, there's a very good chance we're going to see some northern lights in the sky. And we'll dive in a bit deeper on that. I want to leave some time for questions at the end, so I'm not going to give you my full Northern Lights lecture. Viewing the lights, we go to several different places. Question is, so like, what if the moon's out, or what if there's clouds in the sky? Is there a better time to go? And frankly, I just love being out there at any time. I find that dark skies like this picture here, they give you some nice contrast and a darker foreground. But having the moon in the sky, this is a photo directly at the moon with northern lights around it and clouds in the sky. It illuminates that foreground. You get to see some of those things and really build up some fantastic images that way. So you can see here's another example of that, where the moon's in the sky, the aurora's in the sky, but you can actually kind of see everything as if it was illuminated. And you can control how illuminated it looks with your shutter speed, and we can talk about that. A quick one, so a question that we often get is viewing the lights. So unless you have just perfect color acuity and extremely good night vision, seeing color in the northern lights does take time, and it doesn't always happen with the naked eye. Our cameras, photo trips are great. We're going to see a lot more color with our camera, but just as an example, this picture kind of shows you kind of your typical, this is how you first see it or initially see it. Human eyes have rods and cones. The rods see in black and white, the cones see in color. The rods are what we're using for night vision. We'll be wearing bright blue parkas. Look at your neighbor when we're outside and you'll see that their parka looks grayscale or more black than it does blue. But basically we need a lot of light present to see the color in the sky, which I'm not saying it's impossible for northern lights. I'm just saying that usually it starts out like the top image on this slide. And then as the night goes on, and if we get some brighter lights, we may start to pick up some color. And I mean, I'm red-green colorblind myself, so that does me a real disservice when it comes to looking for red and green northern lights. But I have seen kind of the brightness, and I have seen some bluish purples and what I thought was maybe like a green. But everyone's vision is slightly different, and we'll dive a lot deeper into this when we're out there. But anyways, being on a photo trip, that's spectacular because our cameras do a lot of that work for us. So our viewing locations, we're locked into 4 viewing locations on the photo trip, and we've selected these as being basically your most photogenic locations, and we want to make sure. I mean, that's highly an opinion among some photographers and stuff like that, because everywhere in Churchill is beautiful, but we know these places very well, and we know that they can be very productive for nice pictures with good foreground. So White Whale Lodge, this is going to be the start of our trip, first night, and then we're going to go to out to Wapuscook Adventures, out to the Musher's Cabin there in the Boreal Forest. We're going to head out to the Creek Cabin one night, which is a custom cabin designed by NatHab for a night as well. And then we're also going to go, this is one of our newer newer spots here, which is a geodesic dome. It's the aurora sphere, and it's going to be, it's situated in the boreal forest as well. So really spectacular nighttime locations for viewing, with lots of varying foreground one from the other. That'll give us some great diversity in our pictures. Daytime activities, well, we could try doing this, make some snow angels. Up to you. I'm all for it. The snow is warmer than the air, just remember that. And then we're going to do some photo specific stuff. I always like to try to find some nice spots to do sunrise. You know, spend some time, you know, if we have some beautiful scenes and skies, we'll try to get some more landscape style shots with some trees or some rocks. You know, looking at some of the you know, that life that's hidden beneath the snow in most cases. But we're going to spend some time basically exploring around, looking at the different daytime landscape photography opportunities, really focused on the snow and the ice and the harshness of the northern environment. Yeah, so these are just a few pictures from some trips, but trying to maximize our golden hour, trying to maximize the changing light and stuff like that, while mixed in with a lot of other activities. When it comes to daytime activities, you know, we're going to be exploring around quite a lot, but we'll have an opportunity to go snowshoeing. We'll have an opportunity to go dog sledding. We're going to meet some folks from town. I find this is a really rich part of this trip, is to meet local presenters who have either spent their life in Churchill, were born in Churchill, or moved up here and found a calling in Churchill. They really have they really have a unique perspective on the small town and life at the edge of the Hudson Bay in the subarctic. It's really cool. As well, we're going to keep an eye out for other wildlife. Maybe we'll spot an Arctic fox or two. The ravens are kicking around, and they're one of the few birds that sticks around all winter, and they're extraordinary to see. I've seen them flying around in like high winds and -50. Like they don't seem to feel the cold, which is so cool. And then we've got whiskey jacks, or the Canada jay, the gray jay, and potentially some ptarmigan, willow ptarmigan, and then potentially some Arctic hare. So we will be looking for these things, but we don't always find them. I mean, the Arctic hare blends in really well. Same with the ptarmigan, and we can only do our best. So we'll spend time looking, but yeah, no guarantees. But it's out there. We do try really hard. And then as we come to the end here, and as I mentioned, I want to leave a couple minutes for questions here. A couple of pre-trip recommendations from me to you as one of your photo expedition leaders out there. I may be with you, I may not. But basically is test your gear at home, practice with your headlamp, find that red light setting. It's something that I see everybody doing the first, second, third, and fourth night, is, you know, struggling with the sizing, struggling with the finding the light. And I know from experience that just being able to put the headlamp on and click and know where you're at, it's going to save you some really cold fingers while we're out there, and speed up everything for you. So I really do recommend practicing with your headlamp. Wear your gloves when you're doing it, your glove liners, wear your glove liners when you're doing it. And the same thing with practice setting up your camera at home. So these are things that we're really going to need. We're going to need our 2-second timer or self timer when we're out there. We're going to need to be in infinity focus, and we're going to need to get into our starting aurora setting. So I do recommend take a picture of this, or quickly write it down. I'll leave it up for a couple minutes here. But you know, get your lens to the widest angle. Focus your camera to infinity focus, and there's lots of great resources out there to get your camera to infinity focus, and then find your 2-second timer, get it into the release, basically your shutter mode is a 2-second timer, and then your shutter speed needs to be 5 to 10 seconds. So that's how long the exposure will actually be. And then get your aperture to the widest it possibly can, which is the lowest number, f1.8, f2.8, f3.5, somewhere in that zone, and then adjust your ISO to 1600 to 2500. If you spend, you know, 15-20 minutes playing around with this and getting into the zone with this, you're going to be way ahead of the curve, and we're going when we actually do our photo lecture when we actually do our first photo lecture, usually the night that we arrive in Churchill, it's going to basically open up the doors. If we can be in this zone, it's going to open up the doors for a lot of other really interesting things with Northern Lights and practicing some different things. So we want to make sure you leave this trip having a spectacular experience, but also getting some spectacular pictures. And this is one way that just gives you a little bit of a jump ahead. Anyhow, folks, that is what I have for you today on the Northern Lights Know Before You Go. Oh yeah, and the days can be really long, and we're going to try to include some rest time each day. That's the dream, but not too much, just enough to ensure that you're ready to stay up nice and late and be out when the skies are clear and the auroras in the sky. Thank you very much.
Awesome, Eddie. Thank you. That was so detailed. And I hope everybody who's booked on this trip, you are feeling ready to go to get on the plane and join Eddie and the rest of our awesome crew in the field. We do have a couple minutes here for questions. I'll get through as many as I can. And please, if we do not get to your question, if you're already booked, please reach out to the concierge team. And if you're interested in booking this trip, our adventure specialist team would be very happy to help you. So with that, we'll just dive right on in, Eddie. I have a lot of questions here about safety and polar bears. Are polar bears still in the area? And if so, how is that managed?
I mean, polar bears should not be in the area. That's a great question, and safety is, it's absolutely like top of the list for us when we're there. Polar bears should not be in the area. They should be out on the sea ice. The key word I'm using is should. Every winter, the polar bears go out onto the sea ice and they're hunting for seals, and they're well away from shore and well away from where we are. I always like to say, we don't really want polar bears around when we stand outside in the dark looking up at the sky. That's not a great combination. With that being said, whenever we go out for our Northern Lights viewing, or if we're further afield and kind of in a vulnerable place away from the bus for an extended period of time, there is the off chance that there could be a bear in the area or other wildlife. It's not just polar bears that live out there. And so at our nightly viewing locations, we do have bear monitors with us. It's an individual who is trained in polar bear deterrent and safety, whose dedicated role is to basically keep track of everybody, but also to keep track of any wildlife that may be approaching or getting curious of us. And that's one of our key kind of safety precautions at each of our viewing locations. So the likelihood of us seeing a polar bear is very close to zero. I have never seen a polar bear in 30 plus expeditions up there. And they're just out on the sea ice. Sorry, never seen a polar bear during the Northern Lights trips in 30 plus expeditions to do them. So I don't anticipate we'll be seeing them either.
Great. Thanks so much for that explanation. Another common theme that is popping up here in the questions is, do I need a telephoto lens during the day when you're out for wildlife? And if so, what is the longest lens you recommend people bring?
Yeah, I mean, daytime photography, if we're out and about and we get a chance at some wildlife, whether it's ptarmigan or Arctic fox or Arctic hare, something like that. Arctic fox can be very fleeting, but Arctic hare, they're very camouflaged. They just sit in one place. Same with ptarmigan. Then I would recommend, somewhere around 70 to 300 or 100 to 400 would be sufficient. If you got something bigger, cool. But the lens I'm usually bringing with me is a 100 to 400 as a telephoto lens. And another thing to keep in mind too, we can play around with this in the daytime, depending on your interest, is I like to do what I call telephoto landscape photography, taking some of the kind of the smaller far off features of the environment and getting right in close to them in the distance and taking some different styles of pictures. So there are opportunities for telephoto lenses, and wildlife being one of them, and then landscape photography being another option for that.
Great, thank you. I know we've reached the end, but I have a lot of packing questions here, so I'll try to combine them if you're okay with that. One is the loaner gear included in the price of the trip here, like people just get the rental gear, and will they have to pack them in their own suitcases on the way up to Churchill?
Yes, so a good amount of that gear you'll probably want to be wearing. So one of the requirements we do have is that you wear your parka, you wear your boots, the gloves on the plane. You wear your parka and you wear your boots on the plane, and then the gloves and the hats and the neck gaiters and all that kind of stuff. You're just going to stuff into the pockets of the parka and use that as a vessel to transport that gear. The only piece of equipment that people often try to pack or have packed in the past, I would say is going to be the snow pants, because yeah, we don't necessarily need to wear them on the plane unless you're directed to by your expedition leader. But yeah, that would be the one consideration is, yeah, you might want to try to stuff the snow pants in your bag. You could also wear them on the plane. It depends on you. But yeah, otherwise parka, boots, neck gaiter, gloves, all that kind of stuff just gets stuffed into the pockets of the parka.
Awesome. Well, with that, Eddie, I will go ahead and close the Q&A portion of the webinar and turn it back to you for any last closing comments.
Oh, thank you so much, everybody, for showing up. You know, I love this trip. It's something it's kind of part of my annual migration every winter. And I think that being able to experience a proper winter in the subarctic with the temperatures and the extremes that we will experience is something really special. The Northern Lights are phenomenal and one of nature's most beautiful phenomenon, but the winter is very special too. So anyhow, I hope to see you up there, or maybe I'll see you on with another group. But thanks again, and have a great day.
Awesome, Eddie. Thank you so much for taking the time for present to us today. And I would like to thank everybody tuned in. If you're interested in learning more about this trip, if you're already booked or you want to book on the trip, please give us a call at 800-543-8917 or send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists and our concierge team are more than happy to help you. If you're part of a photo club and would like NatHab to speak to your members about nature and travel photography, email us at webinars@nathab.com. Join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation and the replay will be available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody.